GP's Sid here with another episode of Do Talking to Me's Scooby-Doo's Day. In today's vid, I'll be discussing Scooby-Doo Where Are You episode 12, Scooby-Doo and a Mummy 2. I'd just like to begin this video with a correction of the previous video. I did not know that Transylvania is a region of the country Romania. I always just made the wrong assumption that Transylvania was its own country. Daphne knows more about werewolves than me. Let's just move on. We're about halfway through the original Scooby-Doo series now, and you can definitely see the creators going back to the idea well with this episode, which takes place at a museum the gang volunteers at, like in the first episode, but in this episode's totally different museum. Instead of there being a cursed suit of armor being relocated to the museum, there's a cursed mummy. So it's kinda different.
The Mummy of Ankha completes the university's replica of his tomb.
Let me take a wild guess here that the villain is going to turn out to be the guy in charge of the museum exhibit again, huh? The professor even has the same voice as Mr. Wickles from the first episode, Don Messick performing his standard museum curator voice.
I suppose I should thank you for finding the Black Knight. Ankha is over 3,000 years old.
The villain totally can't be the other suspect, Dr. Najib, a suspicious-looking foreigner who delivers a mummy he claims to be cursed to turn mortal men into stone.
Ankha vowed that if he were ever removed from his tomb, he would come back to life.
The man wears a fez. There's no way he could be evil. The mystery hasn't even started yet, but it's gotta be the Robert Stack-looking professor here.
What kind of a crazy coin is this?
Oh, watch Shaggy somehow segue his interest in an ancient Egyptian coin into him being hungry.
It's part of an ancient mystery I haven't been able to solve yet.
Well, could you solve how I can get a sandwich?
I don't know how he got there, but he did. Later, the gang picks up some sandwiches from the malt shop, which is, to my knowledge, the only recurring location in the original Scooby-Doo series. It's the only place that really ties most of these stories together as taking place within a general area, instead of the gang just being wandering vagrants driving a van. This is also the only episode where you actually see the malt shop's cook, who is forced by the gang to make liverwurst sandwiches topped with ice cream. Just terrible. What's wrong with these people?
Liverwurst and ice cream? What'll they think of next?
When the gang returns to the museum, they find that the professor, who is just called the professor, has been turned to stone, which means he'll be spared from eating one of the sandwiches, and Dr. Najib has met a similar fate, but in his car, which I assume is a rental. I know it's not important, but he was visiting from Egypt, I'm guessing, so it's either a rental or on loan from the university. Anyway, who's to blame for all this petrification? It's the Mummy of Ankha, of course.
Zoinks, the mummy!
Now, despite the fact that the mummy encounters the gang multiple times, he doesn't turn them into stone, even though he supposedly possesses the ability to turn anyone into stone. The fact that the mummy isn't turning anyone else into stone just isn't brought up by anybody in the gang. I guess the mummy wanted to turn two guys into stone just as an intimidation tactic. He doesn't want to have to kill these teenagers if he doesn't have to. But it calls into question if the gang essentially believed Najib and the professor were turned to stone, murdered basically. Why didn't they call the police?
Poor Dr. Najib. He must have met the mummy before he could leave.
Of course, Shag later discovers that Scoob has been petrified, mourning the false loss of his friend.
Look, Scoob, you've been turned to stone.
Honestly, he's not that sad about it. The Mummy of Ankha is honestly not my favorite monster in the original series. I feel like I say this a lot, but it's definitely true in this case. The Mummy is just a one-note villain with a very basic mummy design. The Mummy in Johnny Quest puts this mummy to shame for sure. The Mummy behaves a lot like Karis the Mummy from the Universal films, holds his arms out while he walks, and mostly just grunts. The only word he speaks is coin, in reference to the scarab coin that he's after.
Coin.
Coin?
Besides this though, he's just not all that interesting, but I do gotta say, as a villain, the mummy doesn't suffer any foolishness. He'll just bust through doors and shatter priceless artifacts instead of playing the gang's games. The episode in reality does take place in an archaeological exhibit at a university, so they have some fun with the setting that separates it a bit from the first episode. At a chemistry lab, Scoob drinks what is either 3 glasses of toxic chemicals or Mountain Dew. Oh, it's definitely Mountain Dew. Through an out-of-control saw, the gang winds up adrift in the school's swimming pool, pursued by the circular saw, which luckily doesn't just electrocute them to death. Eventually, after the gang discover the purpose of the coin and that the professor has been tied up as the mummy walls Shaggy and Scoob shut inside a shed, Scooby-Doo decides to challenge the mummy to a gymnastic contest, and the mummy loses, revealed to be Dr. Najib. Oh, no way! Who will return his rental car now? Dr. Najib has no closing statements at the end of the episode, and he isn't even shown to be arrested, so I can only assume that Najib was just killed off screen. Anyway, Dr. Najib wanted the coin so he could use it to unlock a Hungry Hungry Hippo statue, which contains a diamond scarab.
It's Ankha's most valued treasure. A diamond scarab worth a fortune.
Honestly, though, we don't really hear Najib's side of the story. He might have wanted to return his country's artifacts instead of having them displayed at an American museum for teenagers to gawk at, his ancient culture made a mockery of by a talking dog. Oh, whatever. Najib was probably evil. He wore a fez after all.
Well, gang, I guess that wraps up the mystery, and the mummy, too.
Scooby-Doo and a Mummy 2 was a mostly unmemorable episode of the original series, with an uninteresting villain, mystery, and setting, but it's saved a bit by some of the set pieces and the cool MacGuffin coin the mummy seeks. Still, I feel like I gotta give episode 12 2 boxes of Scooby snacks out of 5. I have a full-length bonus commentary track watching this video's episode with totally off-the-cuff reactions and observations. It's available on the Dr. Wolfula Patreon. Link down below to pledge to support the channel and get some bonus content in return. Also, I have to own up to the fact that these Scooby vids haven't been released as frequently. Sometimes I might pause these kinds of videos when things get busy, but for now I'll be releasing them on a bi-monthly basis, twice a month, every other Tuesday. I'll try to increase the frequency from there, but for now, expect 2 of these videos a month, and when they do go on hiatus, I'll make sure to let you guys know beforehand. Also, be sure to subscribe to the upcoming Gulag channel. Goulash will be reviewing Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island, link in the description. If you liked this video, like it, and if you loved it, journey further into the Wolfula by clicking the subscribe and bell buttons to find out when all of my latest videos and streams go live. This video was brought to you by my kind supporters on Patreon, whose names are scrolling by. Support the channel today on Patreon and get access to bonus movie and TV commentaries, audiobooks, comic readings, film live streams, and credits at the end of videos. Finally, I'd like to give a very special thanks to my true Wolfulite supporters on Patreon and my YouTube channel memberships for their pledges. Their support is greatly appreciated and helps the channel and my dark influence continue to grow. Thank you all once more from the bottom of my evil heart for your help. Alrighty, Dr. Wolfula signing out. See you all next time at the Wolfula.